Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Victorian Cowboy, and welcome back to the 7th installment in our The Witcher, The Blood of Elves book club. These books are written by Andrej Sapkowski, and I'm reading a translation into English from the original Polish. Just thought I'd throw that out this time. We are talking about the end of Chapter 2, the second half of Chapter 2 today. I've got a couple of pages of notes of just some things I thought interesting in my thoughts as I was reading it. So, without further ado, here we go. So, again, much of this section is from Triss Merigold's point of view. I really enjoy the way that Sapkowski is shifting the narration from different people's perspectives. So in the first chapter, really, we get to see more of it from Dandelion's perspective. And then there's one section where there isn't really a single narrator. It's just the omniscient narrator listening to the people talking. And now we've transitioned into having seeing things through Triss's eyes. So we get to hear about just Triss's thought process and how she has these feelings for Geralt. And we just get to see some more about this world. And one thing I will note is I'm kind of pleased at how open these books are about discussing sexuality. Just because it's so non-puritanical. Growing up in a more conservative locale, having things be certainly more conservative led to some just interesting thoughts and feelings towards things like this. And so, with that being said, having it be just kind of open and getting to view what other people might think about it, or even just what characters think about it, I think is very telling. So that being said, we get to see just how lustful Triss is towards Geralt, and throughout the entire second half of the chapter, we see her constantly going back to wanting to be touched by him and whatnot, as a motivation. Now, something else we get to see here, we see that Triss is, she comes to the conclusion she was summoned here for some reason. And it turns out that reason is because the witches notice Ciri has this strong magical presence with her, and that she's a source. Source being, I wrote it down, some sort of, what was it? Well, I wrote it down. Oh, a source. It's a medium. A medium, some sort of being that can communicate with other spirits in the area. I don't know why I couldn't remember that, but I'm glad I wrote it down. So, the fact that Ciri has this power, and it's come from the old blood, the blood of the elves that flows in her veins, is, or at least I assume that's where it comes from. It would make sense knowing that she does have that elder blood. So, with that in mind, Triss realizes that, calls the witches out on it, and they're like, yeah, that's why you're here, honestly. And in turn, Ciri invites her to stay for a while without the witches' knowledge initially, and Triss agrees. Triss, also being female, is helping Ciri with those issues of the fairer sex, coming of age issues, especially with how the witches use accelerants to growth and whatnot. So Triss is laying out some ground rules for how you work with a woman, because the witches don't know that. They also, it's revealed, haven't had the capabilities to do the trial of grasses or do some of these necessary steps to grow their order, because they lack the magician and the knowledge. They have the technical knowledge, they don't have the magical knowledge. Because although witches can use certain levels of magic, it's very minor. It's by creating signs like Quen and Verdun and things like that. That allows them simple things. So a force push or an aura of protection, things of that nature, things that are very minor on the scale of magic. Whereas something like Triss or Yennefer can summon giant fireballs and just throw them at people and turn things into toads, and all the traditional witchcraft and wizardry. So that is very, very interesting to see, and also just the fact that there's a laboratory that nobody ever gets to see, and and the desires and the secrecy that the witches have, and the fact that none of the witches are the chemists. You've got Vesemir, who's a fencing instructor. You've got the younger ones who are never really trained to teach. They're just trained to do the job. But they're all wintering there. So just seeing some of the changes and whatnot, especially in when Ciri comes in the dress that Yennefer has made for her, and is just the complete change and the understanding that the witches have. Also, seeing Triss get upset at the witches for the severity of the damage being done to Ciri's poor little body in training. I can understand that needing to train and learn how to do things is important, but at a certain level there's also the need to recuperate and not beat someone black and blue because they're struggling with something. So giving them the opportunity to learn without corporal punishment, in this case not necessarily being punishment, but just you weren't fast enough, you got hit by the claw or whatever it is, the windmill they were practicing on, which sounds like a really intriguing thing, is definitely necessary. And I think Triss is bringing a slightly more sympathetic or empathetic, a more caring lens there, especially since Triss is a healer. That was her speciality in magic, if I recall correctly. Beyond that, there was a quote in here about catching the fear that I really liked. When Triss is talking to Ciri about the damage, Ciri says, well, you have to keep going or else you catch the fear. And when she explains it, catching the fear is when you get knocked down, if you don't get right back up and go at it again, you're going to start overthinking it, and you're going to start to become afraid of it because of what it's done. And I think that's a really powerful way to look at the idea of fear and why people develop things like social anxiety and whatnot. As somebody who is a teacher and works with people who have stage fright or anxiety, and as somebody who has to some degree social anxiety myself, I find that forcing yourself to get back up there and continue on even though you've been knocked down, you've been embarrassed, something has happened and you're overthinking it again, but force yourself to get up there and do it. I actually feel like that might be a very powerful way to try and overcome those fears. So I think that Geralt's philosophy there is spot on. And even Triss feels like that's pretty spot on for a philosophy. Now, the other thing, Triss lays out some rules for what to do with Ciri coming up. She has to go to school, which everybody already agreed on. They have to limit the modifications to her body that they're making. Though they can continue to train her, just not during times where she is indisposed, as they put it. And just seeing how proud Ciri was of coming in and making that display of civility and vouching for herself, even though she was looking for Triss, or at Triss for cues and whatnot, I think was a really, really nice touch, a really interesting look at reminding everybody that Ciri, while she is training to be a witcher, is not a witcher. She's a princess, and there's these elements there that are beyond the witcher's general wheelhouse. And so I'm really enjoying it. I'm thinking that some of these changes will be interesting. I like to try and make predictions as to what's going to continue happening, and right now, because we don't have any common thread going on, I'm not quite sure. I'm sure Triss will start working with Ciri and trying to train her in certain rudimentary magics, or beginning magics. They're going to send her to the Temple of Melittle for I may pronounce that wrong, but the goddess Melittle, with Naneke, I believe. That's a school of healers and whatnot, but Geralt has been there in the past to get healed. she's still being hunted, and Geralt doesn't necessarily know who's hunting Ciri or if she's being hunted. Nobody's told him that yet. I'm sure he could assume that somebody would want the Princess of Cintra dead, though, especially since they destroyed Cintra itself. But, so I'm concerned that while she's at the school, something may happen, or en route to the school, that sets off another sort of quest line for Geralt to try and find who's after her, because Geralt feels responsible for it. And to a degree, Triss is now also responsible for Ciri's well-being and Ciri's upbringing. So those would be my guesses. What happens in the next chapter? I don't know. I don't even know whose perspective it might be from. They could go back to Dandelion or Yennefer in trying to figure out the whole somebody's trying to find Ciri and is going to kill whoever stands in their way. We could see more training and Geralt and Triss and like the magic coming into play. I'm looking forward to it. I'm enjoying this. I'm hoping that for the next one I might be able to just do the whole chapter all at once. But this is my last week of freedom before the school year starts up again. So we'll just have to see how it works. But hopefully next 2-3 days I'll get the next video up. Thank you for following along with us. Please feel free to comment. Let us know what you think. And as always, have a good one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our video. We do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought, and as always, have a good one.